Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. This week, I'm thrilled to chat with award-winning director Traci Hays. Traci has a new true crime thriller feature that premieres tomorrow, May 2nd at 8/7 Central on Lifetime. The movie's titled Kidnapped in Her Own Home, The Martha Carelli Story. Traci sits down with me today to talk about her path to filmmaking, what she loves about the true crime space, the difference between making shorts and making features, and much more. She even shares some of the happy accidents that happened on set, and I can't wait for you to hear all the stories. Kidnapped in Her Own Home, The Martha Carelli Story premieres tomorrow, but right now, I hope you enjoy my interview with director Traci Hays. Thank you so much for making time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So very excited to talk to you. Of course, your new movie is actually coming out, I think, tomorrow, based on when we're talking. Kidnapped in Her Own Home, The Martha Carelli Story. But I also just got to watch Frederick, as well as Disconnected.
Oh,
Those are
nice.
both so cool. And so I was just excited to talk about your career in general, shorts versus features, all of that. Do you mind if we just jump right in?
Yeah, Leah, happy to. Let's do it.
So I know Kidnapped in Her Own Home is based off a true crime story, I think Anne Rule, uh, like set in '78 and such. And it looks from the trailer like it updated or like y'all updated it. At least I don't remember my mom having uh, an in-home treadmill when I was a little kid. So I think y'all updated it a little bit. Can you talk a little
Yes,
bit about you coming on board the project, the development of it, kind of how it came about?
absolutely. Yes. I love that that's the first thing you noticed because there were differences obviously between the what we ultimately filmed and the actual true crime, story and how it unfolded. And as you know, with any movie, and a book adaptation, it's always a little bit different. Ultimately, what ends up on the screen. So when I pitched on this movie for a Lifetime last year, and I read the script. It was written by Connor Allen and Benjamin Anderson, who also served our executive producers on the film, and they've done a number of several films already in this space, specifically with Anne Rule. And so I was excited because Anne Rule is such a prolific writer in this space, and I hadn't particularly heard of this story. The first thing I did when I read the script was, of course, look up Martha Corelli. And if anyone is confused as to why you can't find any information about her, it's because Anne changed the names of the victims at their request. So, unfortunately, there was only the one chapter in the book about this true story. So, to pull from. So yeah, it was quite. I wanted, of course, I wanted more as a creative. I always want to honor the story as closely as possible within the realm of what's possible. In terms of budget, time constraints. Obviously, I love it to be set in a more of a period, 70s, but early 80s, but that was not possible given the budget. So
In terms of types of stories, I mean, obviously, I have a pretty good idea what Kidnapped in Her Own Home is going to be about and like in terms of tension.
yeah,
But Frederick surprised me. That was super cool. Uh, your short film about a panel,
yeah,
bit of a twist to it. Um,
yeah,
can you
definitely.
talk about? Is there something about the tension or danger of a kind of a crime space that appeals to you? Is that something you've always seen in your storytelling, or something that surprised you in your career?
I it's interesting. I grew up watching musical theater, which is completely out of left field from obviously true crime. I I say that just because my taste has evolved over the years, and I I'm a very curious person, and I was a very curious kid. My mom talks about how I was always, asking questions and wanting to learn more. And I think this is totally straight and random. I don't know why I thought of this. Like, I liked squirrels, and I found a way. I wanted to engineer like a fake squirrel when I was a kid and like figure out how to like make it be animatronic. I don't know. Anyway, I think the point of it is it's just very curious, and I always wanted to know why people acted the way they acted, and I think in when it comes to the true crime space, specifically thrillers, mystery, I kind of associate that with just my love of like growing up watching, Carmen Sandiego and playing, from the games to the book to the show, and Nancy Drew and the Boxcar Kids. So like all these, I grew up very much wanting to learn about these mysteries and why these things happened, and so I naturally, as a storyteller, gravitate towards more dramatic tone in nature, dramatic, storytelling, like films that have, that sort of tension and through line. And I think it has to do with the fact that I just like how fragile life is, because I actually was born with a congenital heart defect and have had a number of open heart surgeries, and so I kind of faced my own mortality at a very young age, where I had to like sign away acknowledgement that like I might not wake up from this procedure. And so I think there was, I was 15. And so for me, I think being able to ask those questions and do things that scared me and learn from those things, I think is why I ultimately started finding myself gravitating to want to know the meaning of life and how fragile life is and why people make choices that they make, and how, for me, coming from a space of genuine curiosity. So those are all things I think contributed to my curiosity now.
I think there's something in the, particularly like the crime space, where you have decisions that people think are going to stay secret. And
Mm.
so they end up being very revealing, vulnerable. No one else on earth is going to see this. You made this decision alone in a room, but it comes to
Mm-hmm.
light because we know about the crime. And
Yeah.
so I think there's always a storytelling opportunity there to very quickly get to the heart of who someone is in the worst moment, kind of crucible
Mm.
of it. I think that's what
Yeah.
struck me with Frederick was how it felt like an experiment in how quickly can you get and land the next moment,
Mm.
because it felt like a complete crime story. Like it felt like it could be a complete movie, very short. Uh,
Yeah.
I would very much
Yeah.
encourage people to go watch that. It's on Omeletto. It's great. Uh,
Thank you.
but in terms of directing and the career of film, I know I was surprised the first time I ever went on set and looked around at everybody with each person having a very specific job and going, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
what's a gaffer?" And they're like, "I don't know, man, but they're invaluable." And you know,
Yeah.
was there
Yeah.
a moment when you realized directing was the space that you wanted to occupy in that project?
Just, well,
In
direct,
general, like at Chapman,
yeah,
was there a moment where you looked around and went, "I think I want to do this role"?
for the rest of, yeah. I came, I came to film in a very, like to film school specifically, you mentioned Chapman, in a very interesting way, because I didn't, filmmaking wasn't even on my radar, like I didn't, there weren't gobs and gobs of behind the scenes of watching filmmakers work. And like you mentioned, oh, that's a job and that's an important job. Like there wasn't that role model or sort of around me growing up. So no one in my family was in the entertainment business. I, grew up in San Jose, in a suburb of Northern California, where, I was just encouraged to use my imagination, and my parents were really supportive of that. And so I kind of stumbled my way into just what filmmaking was. I would take photographs. I started with photography, and I had a 35 millimeter camera. My grandfather had a ton of cameras and lenses, and I actually grew up wanting to be a professional soccer player, and he would come to all my games and take my photos and of me playing. And so I got to kind of see, it started with photography. I truly feel like that was a part of that, contributed to my, desire of visual storytelling. And then I would say after, in high school is when I started to go, I was already making little movies with I have three younger siblings. I'm the oldest of four. I feel like I was always kind of directing the chaos and just being a loud, messy American Italian family. So I feel like I was always just around the just throwing them in my short films when I was a kid. And I took my first film class when I was 16 at my local junior college. I contribute that to watching behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings when it came out on DVD. I saw Peter Jackson doing something on set, and I was like, "Who is that? And what is that job? That sounds interesting." I'm a storyteller. I was a team captain on my soccer team, so I think there was this weird sports analogy with filmmaking that just kind of intersected in this perfect way that I had no idea when I was a teenager that all made sense. Being a leader and what it means to be a leader and how to handle stress and how to handle navigating a team and keeping everyone's spirits up when things aren't looking good. So it's amazing looking back and having this conversation with you now. I'm sort of putting those dots together as we're just talking. I think that all contributed to then ultimately going, okay, I want to apply to film school. There were no female directors doing any. There was no. The first time I saw a female director, that was when Catherine Bigelow won her Academy Award. I was just like, I like that job. I want to do it. It didn't even occur to me that would be a hard thing to do, in period. And then I started applying to film school. So, yeah, it was so many curveballs to get to that point. So,
Yeah, I'm so glad that we have so much more discussion lately about representation and just seeing, not just on screen and seeing people in various roles, but
yeah,
even just seeing people behind the scenes, above the line, below the line, where just doing these different jobs. I think
yeah,
about it every time anybody complains about like nepotism in the film. It's a lot easier to get into a career if that career path is at least normalized. I think
mm,
if you move from the Midwest to Hollywood, there's a coin flip chance your parents are like, "Oh my God, you're making the biggest mistake of your life."
mm-hmm,
As opposed to if you grew
mm,
up and are like, "No, man, my uncle does stunts. It's a viable career path."
right,
Uh,
normalized.
I think normalizing that really helps you not feel like the craziest kid in the world. It
Yeah,
takes it out of the running away to the circus level of
mm,
jobs that you could do.
for sure. Yes.
Is when you're making something, do I'm always curious, do shorts feel like shorts versus features? Do shorts feel like a small, like a passion project that you get to do in between something, or do they feel like you just, you have to stay sharp between? I always feel
Yeah.
like shorts live in an odd space where, thanks to streaming now, there's a lot better chance to watch shorts. When I was in high school and college, they just went away after fests. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so when you're making a short, does that feel like just keeping your hand in between the bigger projects, or do you have like a running list of like Tracy's secret projects that
I love
fall in like the 15-minute
that.
range?
I love that's a great question. That's so fun. I love to think of it. I I short films when you think everyone's like, oh, you'll never make your money back. And that can be true no matter the length, features and shorts, frankly. But there is something to be said. I think short film, it's a very oversaturated market. If you look at any film festival, they'll tell you, you'll get 10,000 short submissions and, far less feature submissions. So that space is very oversaturated in terms of just things that are being made because there is so much more accessibility, which is amazing, but it just means that the projects have to be that much more excellent in terms of craft or depending on what the programmer or festival is looking for. For me, I have not directed a short in 7 years, and it wasn't. I think it's a great place to, depending on what it is, right? If you're pivoting from one position to another and you need to show that you're capable of the work, then I think it's very important to do a short. Some people do it because they just can't get the idea out of their head. And for me, Frederick, for example, I was actually a work for hire. So I've actually been hired to direct a number of short films in addition to the films that I made myself. That were definitely more in the passion project realm. In a perfect world, I'm always creating, right? As an artist, you want to work on your craft. And I think it's, a writer can do that every day. They can write, an actor can go to acting class, they can act. A painter can pick up a paintbrush and paint. But a director, it's like what you can study, you can watch films, you can write about them, you can shot list, you can work, but the actual doing of the thing on set, that is, unless you are on set, just not directing, but doing, I mean, to actually be on set directing, you either create your own opportunities, which is in this case the short films, or to practice. So I think it is about keeping the tool, keeping the tool sharp and trying new things, and not being afraid to just try something that you don't have the time to do on a feature, right? Where I got to try something new. In the case of where I'm at now, do I have a Traci secret list of shorts? No, I do have a list of it's a very short list of projects, features that I want to get made that are very personal, for a various number of reasons. So I would say now they're very valuable, and I'm really glad that I've been able to make a bunch and try, and like that's where I got my feet wet, right? Like I was able to make, I don't know, 7 or 8 short films. And in fact, the film that got me my first feature, Hooked, which is a rom-com, led to me directing my first feature. So I think it is, you never know where that next project will lead you. So,
Well, a couple of your movies on Tubi have just spectacular titles, just no notes. My Bloody Galentine is a great title, and Blood, Sweat, and Cheer is also great. Uh,
yeah,
Tubi has jumped up in the last few years as a word I had never heard. We made that word up a few years ago, uh,
yeah,
and now it's one of those like their algorithm's too good. It knows exactly the thing. It's a weird list of things I want to watch,
yeah,
uh, and better than most. I'm really shocked.
yeah,
But I love flipping through their originals. I don't know. They hit that space. I think that Lifetime, when I was growing up, is what I thought of Lifetime as, and Lifetime still
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Um, so this weekend we've got Kidnapped in Her Own Home coming out. Is there anything in particular that really surprised you? Funny moment, best I don't know, happy accident uh,
Mm,
that happened on the set for this one?
mm-hmm. Yeah. I happy accidents. I love that's a great. It's yeah. There was definitely a few of those. One that I can think about in particular was we. There were several long scenes that were scripted to take place in the car. Obviously, in the film, she gets kidnapped, and then they end up in a car traveling. And I was thinking, gosh, to have a 10-minute scene in a car is going to get boring really fast, so it was like how to find ways to like shoot that in a more interesting way. In any case, we were filming, this is a fun little behind the scene tidbit, we were filming a scene, last scene of the night, where they pull up to the hotel to get out and find a room for the night. And it was scripted, the scene took place in the car. And then, one of the Doug's character gets out of the car and goes in. And over radio, I heard that the picture car wasn't on site. And I was like, what? It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. We're all exhausted. We have to be out of this location in 30. I have to shoot this entire scene in 30 minutes. And the picture car is not, they dropped it at the wrong location.
Oh my God.
So I was like, okay, we'll figure this out. So I just looked at my producer and I knew there was no option. We're not punting the scene to tomorrow. On a 15-day shoot, you don't punt things. You
Yeah.
either cut it or you find a way to shoot it in 2 shots. Like that's how that works. So I took a deep breath. I walked around the corner and just had to take a moment to myself to collect myself and go, okay, how do I navigate this? Because what the audience doesn't know, they don't know, right? Like I'm telling you the
Right.
story, and like you're gonna watch this now and be like, oh, okay, like you would have never known that the scene was scripted that way, and ultimately, it was a happy surprise, happy accident because it got the characters out of the car, and there was no specific reason that would make the scene fall apart if these characters weren't in the car. They just walk up, and it completely works. And we didn't have to change. I think there might have been like one line of dialogue we tweaked, and within 10 minutes of the pivot, we were filming. I mean, there was, and it was like an accident that turned out to be just fine. And I found a creative problem solved. That was every day. We had to shoot our establishing shot of the entire movie with a different car, and no one, I don't know if anybody will notice, but it is. There was just the picture cars. It was. I think this movie was like, how many times does my picture car die? Because that picture car died on me many times. Like, it was the running joke of the show. So, yeah.
I mean, I know how when it gets to the days of shooting, it can turn into a little bit of well, you've got to get these shots to make your day, and this kind of punch list of, and I feel like that can add a rigidness to thinking sometimes of like, well, we're not going to vary because, what are we going to improv all day? We're going to lose. Like, I imagine it could be a little scary to know when you could, hey, do we need the car here? You would never just say that.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I'm feeling squirrely today. Let's just wing it. Like, that's just never going to happen. So I think occasionally being inconvenienced with these opportunities is kind of neat. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. That's really cool.
So random. One of those silly random, but BTS. Many more where those came from.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me about it all today. Folks can watch this, starting May 2nd over on Lifetime. It's going to be 8/7 Central. I feel like I don't get to hear that on TV anymore. I grew up with that at the end of every single show I watched.
Yes. It's nice. It is nice to reach a different audience. And it will be available VOD and streaming the next day on Lifetime. And for those folks that don't have it, it'll be available on VOD for rental. So
very cool. Well, thank you so much, and I'll let you get back to your day. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your thoughtful questions. I really appreciate it.
TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.